Today is April 1st, and today's quote is entitled, "I have come to encourage." Various leaders on a morning walk were complaining about problems created by this devotee and that devotee. And Prabhupada swung his cane up in the air and said, "All of you have come simply to discourage, and I have come only to encourage." And then all the devotees started offering respects to one another. One very interesting reality about Srila Prabhupada is that Prabhupada said that a spiritual master always has to correct the disciple, criticize, chastise. Otherwise, the disciple will be spoiled. I believe that's an aphorism of Chanakya. The disciple or the son will be spoiled. But we see it was rare that Prabhupada chastised, and mostly he encouraged, because we needed encouragement. We doubted ourselves. We doubted that we could be successful. We could control ourselves. We could develop humility. We could be steady as devotees. And Prabhupada gave us belief in ourselves, greater belief than we had in ourselves. He was always pleased when we made a little effort. He'd always encourage us to do more. "Yes, I'm satisfied. Please continue in this way. This pleases me very much." We'd get letter after letter like that from Srila Prabhupada, encouraging us, showing us he was satisfied with our efforts, however little or great they were, however successful we were or were not. But we had a tendency to judge one another by standards with which we didn't even judge ourselves. We would see other devotees and we would think, well, you're not living up to Prabhupada's standards, or you're not fulfilling Prabhupada's desires in this way or that way. And then rather than direct that to ourselves, we would always notice what others were doing wrong. And sometimes we would tell them, or we would speak behind their back and it would get to them. And so when Prabhupada says we're simply discouraging, he meant we're simply finding out what's wrong with others and thus discouraging them rather than finding out what they're doing well, or finding out any little sincerity they have in encouraging and acknowledging that. So we want to be representatives of Prabhupada. We want to follow in his footsteps. We want to align with what he was doing. And so it's important for us to know that that was one of Prabhupada's main services to us, was to encourage us, to enthuse us, to keep us going in Krishna consciousness when sometimes we felt like we were climbing up a mountain and we'd never reach the top. The other point, which is significant, is that if I encourage you and you encourage me, it's good for both of us. If I discourage you, if I criticize you, it's not good for me and it's not good for you. Of course, sometimes an authority has to correct. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about general relationships. So it's harmful for me to be critical, because being critical is not the mood or the attitude of a Vaishnava. A Vaishnava is humble. And because he's humble, he appreciates. And so if I appreciate, it helps me become humble. It's a symptom of humility, and it's very purifying. So aside from how it affects the other devotees, we need to be encouragers for our own benefit. And we need to protect ourselves from offending devotees, because if we do, it harms our bhakti. A little bit or a lot, but it definitely harms it. So let's remember what Prabhupada said, "I've come to encourage." And when the devotees were complaining about this devotee and that devotee, Prabhupada saying, "And you all come simply to discourage." Hare Krishna.